Okay, I'm going to do this. I'm not backing out. I'm going to do this. Hi folks, if you're new here, I'm Dawn. This is Tangled Together, where I talk about my knitting hobby and the other things in life that get tangled up in it. Little sneak peek. Hey folks, today we are organizing my yarn stash. So I did this last year in like early January, I think it was. I am not somebody who goes through my yarn stash on a yearly basis normally, but we've been kind of doing a big reorganize sort of the house. And with that, I also thought I'd bring it over into my yarn, because where I previously had my yarn stored was in our bedroom on this built-in bookshelf behind a door. So in some ways it was nice because that we have the door open almost all of the time, so it protected the stuff on that shelf from getting a lot of dust on it. But it also meant my yarn collection was out of sight, out of mind. And I used to have it in these baskets. I never even took the tag off them. These mesh baskets, which, allow for dust and stuff to get in. And also you can kind of see what's in there, but not really as much. Plus I can't really fit two of these next to each other on these shelves where I wanted to put them. So instead, I've gotten these acrylic boxes that I can put next to each other, and as you can see up here, I can stack them up too. And there is an opening for the handle, but overall I feel like they're going to keep dust and stuff out of my yarn a little bit better than the mesh boxes are. Plus I can really see what's in them, and I found I can lay the way that I can put the skeins of yarn in the box also is a little bit better size-wise than these ones. And something I had talked about doing last year and just never got around to is adding my stash onto Ravelry. I think that's going to be really helpful because not only is it going to give me a list of my full stash, but then I can also go through that for things like, okay, I have a project, I can check my stash to see what I have beyond just walking over and looking, because I do feel like there are a handful of skeins that I have forgotten because I only have one or two of them, or it's oh, well, I could combine these two to get the right weight. As well as there are some partial skeins left over from projects that some of them I do remember what the yarn was, and a lot of them I don't. So I feel like moving forward, if I have things in Ravelry, then I can mark, that I used it for a project, but the leftover, I can also indicate I still have this much of it, and having the colorway and all of what kind of yarn it is will make it a lot easier to use those leftovers in a future project, because some of them I'm sitting here going I don't remember if this was superwash, if this was worsted or DK, and just being able to know that would make me much more likely to use leftover yarn or be able to plan for a scrappy project or something like that. And yes, so I've actually put a number of skeins already in boxes. This was all yarn that wasn't really in any of these boxes. So yes, you can see I've also acquired a lot more yarn, thanks to a couple of giveaways, going to the Knitting by the Sea retreat, some plans to dye some yarn. Yeah, I think having the yarn in a room, I spend a little bit more time it's not just our bedroom where it's I go here to sleep, and I try and keep it a room where it's sleep or getting ready. But now that I've moved it into our office/guest room, this is where I spend a lot of time working, a lot of time thinking and stuff like that. So just having this here will be nice to be able to think about and refer to. Ooh, if I get inspiration, I can walk over and look at the yarn and remember what I have, instead of going oh, I'll go buy something for this project, and be no, use what I have in stash. So yes, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull all of the yarn out, even the stuff that I've put up here, because I do need to add these to Ravelry. And I'm going to add them to Ravelry as much as I can. There's some that I know I'm not going to remember what yarn it is. So that's probably going to go into a big like mystery yarn box. But I'm going to add all of it to Ravelry, take pictures and everything so I can remember it, and then resort it. I'm going to get stuff out of these mesh boxes. I've got a number more of the acrylic boxes that I can use, and I hope that everything fits. I'm probably going to set aside some yarn to give away, rehome, just because it's stuff that, you know, it's been in my stash for a while and I've not had the inspiration to use it. Maybe let's find somebody else who would use that yarn, who would appreciate it, and also give me more space for stuff that I'm actually definitely going to use. Okay, I'm going to do this. I'm not backing out. I'm going to do this. Cue the montage.
Ruby, she was made for going west, did not protest my wandering ways. Ruby, she was pretty as they come, 28 years young and unafraid. She gave me shelter on the coldest nights, shaded me on summer days. And I had never known my place before, but that's what Ruby soon became. Ruby, she wasn't good at going fast, and the patience that I lacked I learned to grow. 'Cause Ruby had a way of breaking down, leaving me out there on the road. But she gave me shelter on the coldest nights, shaded me on summer days. So as we traveled across the countrywide, Ruby set the pace.
All right, I've gotten all of my yarn out of the boxes and on the floor, and it's a lot more than I realized. I even have one more box, but as soon as I started pulling the yarn out of it, I remembered that basically a year ago we had read Extra Yarn, and my kiddo got the idea while I was like, I think I was in a work meeting, and she had the idea to make Ripley a sweater. So she pulled out a whole bunch of yarn and just like threw it around the dog, because that was before I started trying to teach her how to knit. And it resulted in this giant rat's nest of yarn. But luckily it was a box of mostly, honestly, yarn that I didn't really have any specific projects in mind. And it was like stuff I had picked up from like Michael's and Joann's years ago, or like when Joann's was going out of sale. And like it wasn't like, oh no, you got the like super expensive mohair or anything that I was like, I definitely need this for a project. It was just a bunch of odds and ends mostly. So I think probably I'm going to go through that, see what I can salvage. And then most of that, I'm not going to bother trying to untangle that rat's nest, because it will take me probably a couple of hours, and it's just not worth it to me. I don't really enjoy untangling yarn. Even though my channel is called Tangled Together, I don't enjoy untangling it. I will if I have to. So yes, but now we have the fun task of adding all this to Ravelry. And I will say, like, laying it all down, I had a much better, like, it both was more yarn than I realized and less. And the reason I say that is because I definitely have more fingering weight yarn than I realized. I thought I had a good amount of fingering weight yarn, but laying it out, like probably about half of this is fingering weight. A lot of that I've acquired very recently because I got a bunch of fingering weight at the Knitting by the Sea retreat. I won a whole bunch of Malesia sock yarn from Knit Picks. And I do want to make more socks, so that's good. And I have a number of projects for myself and for my daughter that are fingering weight projects, because it's like summer tops or a lightweight sweater for her. Like I'm thinking maybe doing some like a color work, light work sweater for her that is just going to be a lot more wearable in the climate that we're in than a heavier weight. But I was surprised that I had less DK weight yarn. That's like up here, I think, if I'm pointing to the right area. Yeah, and worsted is over here. Because I feel like most of the projects I've completed are DK weight. I've done like a couple sweaters for her, a couple sweaters for myself. But I realized it's because I got yarn specifically for those projects and did a good job of using up like what I had and not having a bunch of leftovers. I definitely have to do this now. I can't just leave this on the floor, because while my kiddo is a lot better about like not pulling yarn out and tangling it up, this is too much of an invitation for intrusive thoughts. Plus dogs, like they're gonna want to walk around and stuff like that, and they're better, but I don't always trust Ripley. And she does like to pull the paper tags off of skeins of yarn. And I need those to tell what the yarn is. All right, let's go.
Ruby could be fickle and unfit, good as I would get at times. Ruby was the closest thing to home I'll ever know in this life. Hit that California sand and slipped right through my hands eventually. Ruby, I guess I knew it all the time. She was never mine to keep. She gave me shelter on the coldest nights, shaded me on summer days. Nothing ever felt like home again when Ruby went away. Nothing ever felt like home since when Ruby went away.
Ta-da! It's done! Yay! Oh, I'm really happy that this is all up and here. I'll turn that off. It's a little distracting. So yeah, pretty much all of the yarn fit up in these boxes. I did get rid of a handful of skeins that I'm going to donate, see if anybody in my local knitting group wants them, just help them find a new home. But for the most part, everything stayed. I do have a handful of some additional scraps that I have a plan for what I'm going to do with it. So right now I do have a bunch of little balls and scraps in this jar. This was just a glass like kitchen container jar I got from IKEA. This usually lives on my desk, and I think I'm going to put it back on my desk, but I'm also going to get a second one of these that can live right there, and it's a nice little like decorative thing, but it doesn't take up quite as much space as the basket, because I don't think a whole basket would fit here without fully blocking this light. And we also use this room as our guest room, so when we do have guests staying over here, being able to like push that back, and this is right next to our guest bed, so they have a spot to like set their phone or book. Oh, this shelf isn't on. Glad I caught that. But yes, so they have a nice place to rest their phone or book or whatever it is next to the bed. But yeah, very happy. Okay, let's go through like a quick tour of my yarn. I'm gonna take the boxes down and kind of go through them one by one. General stuff. All right, so this box has a bunch of Wool of the Andes. I'm pretty sure all of it is superwash. There are a couple in here that I got a while ago, but I was able to go on the Knit Pick site and see my recent orders to figure out the colorway and determine if they were superwash or not. So that's all in here. I kind of tried to do like sweater quantities up higher and then similar weights together. This one is a combination of some sport weight and there is some worsted weight like woolly Lion Brand woolies, and most of the sport weight is Heatherly by Knit Picks. It's really great for like toddlers and kids clothes because it's a blend of, I think it's wool and acrylic, but it washes really well. It does pill, kind of pill, like the color pills in it, but I don't know. Maybe I'll go over that in a future video, like if you'd be interested in seeing like how my toddler's clothes have worn, I'd be happy to do that video. In this one, I have a sweaters quantity, probably plus some of Wool of the Andes in Sprinkle Heather. That's that whole box. This whole box has the Andean Treasure bear that I'm planning on dyeing. I also put the dye packets, because it's a tincture dye, in with it so I don't lose those. These are DK weights. So in here I have honestly a bunch of yarns that I've gotten to make stuff for my kiddo and a couple of random DKs in here. You can even see the little, that blue purple one is a skein that I bought 11 years ago on my honeymoon while I was in Amsterdam. Still haven't figured out what to do with it, but I want to keep it. This box mostly has some Modish Merino. I made colorwork hats for my parents last year, and I might use it to make a like colorwork thing for my kid or more colorwork hats. And then I also have some Swish that I was very kindly gifted from Knit Picks for being their like spotlight ambassador a month ago, that as soon as I opened it, my kid was like, "Are you gonna make me a sweater out of this?" So I guess that's what I'm doing. This box has all of the yarn I got from while I was on the Knitting by the Sea retreat. Yeah, that's all fingering weight yarn in there. And then this is a bunch more random fingering weight yarn that I've collected over the years. So you can see kind of some of the colors that are in here, some of the colors that are in here. All of the Melissa sock yarn from Knit Picks is in this one. That, again, maybe do a color work with it or just a lot of very bright socks. And then these two bottom ones are also fingering weight. I have 4 boxes of fingering weight. I did not realize I was going to have that much. So yes, this is another kind of miscellaneous box of fingering weight. There's a bunch of Patton's Croy socks in here I picked up while Joann's was going out of business. There's some Stroll. These two are sparkly skeins that I might make like a top for my daughter out of. And then the extra from my cat knit sweater. And then this box has a whole bunch of palette yarns. I honestly forgot I had these. I got them and made, I think, a bunch of colorwork socks or hats years ago. I never took pictures or kept track of it because that was pre when I knew about Rabbit, and I didn't want to like take pictures and then upload to Ravelry, which I should have, just so I could track the projects I've made. And then it also has a bunch of Surrey, a couple skeins of Surrey in there. And in case you're interested in the boxes that I used, they were Bright Room, which is a Target brand. They're acrylic, 11-liter capacity. They've got a number of different sizes. A few thoughts as far as uploading everything to Ravelry. I got into like a nice flow where I was taking pictures, letting that kind of sync with my computer while I entered in the info. One thing I noticed after doing, like, I did, I don't know, like 3, maybe 4 boxes worth, and a number of them were like, oh, here's like 4 different colorways in Swish. If you scroll all the way at the bottom when you're updating it, at least on the computer, there's a little button that you can click, like add another colorway or add colorway. Oh, I realized that luckily before I got to the Modish Merino, which I have like 7 or 8 colorways of that. So that made it so much faster because it saved all of the like, where did I get this? What kind of yarn, all of that info. So I just had to select the colorway and then drop in the picture for it. So much faster. Also, it had an option to like add additional stashed yarn. I didn't do that one, so I don't know if that would save like where you bought things from, just because I was going through a number of these things I was entering where it was like, I bought this at this place or I bought this at this place. I didn't enter in also all of the like when I bought it. I didn't put in any of the costs for it, and I also didn't put in where I bought it for some of them. For the ones that I definitely remembered, and especially like my local yarn stores, I wanted to highlight that. But for other ones, unless it was like through an online store, that it was very obvious because it was like Knitpicks brand. I didn't put in the store info. Like Michael, there were a couple yarns I'm pretty sure I bought at Michael's, maybe Joann's. I didn't bother with that. I feel so much better about this organization system than when it was shoved behind our door in our bedroom. It feels much more like, look, I can see all the pretty yarn that I've spent money on, and I can get inspiration from it. And it's also not, I feel like having it in these boxes, it is visible, but it's also this like odd contained clutter. And I might also like shift some things around too, so that like visually, like when I step back, it kind of appears a little bit more as like a solid unit. So like for my brain, it feels less cluttered for whatever reason than the mesh ones did. I don't know if that, if you agree with me, if that's just a weird thing my brain is doing. But yes, and I also feel like I'm going to have a lot better time finding things as well as getting inspiration to start using some like more scrappy projects or pairing together different colors, combinations from what I already have in stash. Because that's something I would like to do a little bit more of moving forward, is using a little bit more of stash yarn. So there you go. I have an organized yarn stash that I feel like this is the best yarn organization I've ever had. It all makes sense. I might even add labels on some of these for the weights, but I also feel like it makes sense. And because I have the Ravelry the info on Ravelry now, if I have any questions, I can go back to that. I'm definitely going to be adding yarn as I acquire it to Ravelry, just so that I don't, like, I had 1 or 2 mystery skeins that I was just like, I think this is DK weight. I have no idea what the brand is. I have no idea what the fiber content is. It feels maybe like a wool blend. But I want to avoid that in the future, just so that like when I'm going to my stash, I can feel confident. Because like, yeah, definitely if I use that yarn, whatever project I use that yarn in is going to be something that is not like a kid's thing or like a household like blanket that I'm going to want to be able to throw in the wash, because I don't want to find out that it's non-superwash the hard way. How do you organize your yarn? Do you have a similar method? Have you used any of these acrylic boxes? Especially if you've used these acrylic boxes, how have they held up? I'm really hoping that this holds up a little bit more long-term than the mesh baskets, and also keeps like dust out of them. Do you like to have your yarn on display? Do you hide it away? Let's chat yarn storage in the comments. And do you have any recommendations for like utilizing Ravelry for organizing your yarn? Yeah, I'd love to know that. My light died, so I shifted things around. But yes, I wanted to say a huge thank you to everybody for watching. If you enjoyed the video and want to see more of my knitting content as well as the other things that get tangled up, please make sure that you are subscribed. Also, if you want to support me on Patreon, you can go check that out. We've got some cool perks. We're kind of rolling things over from Roll for Initiative while that's on a hiatus, and kind of bringing everybody together who's a fan of my content as well as Ryan's content, like us together, into one place. You can go on over there and find the tier that works for you. Even if you can't support us on Patreon, thank you for watching. Making these videos and getting to know the people like in this online knitting community is really, really special, and I wouldn't be doing this without you. I hope you have a good one, and I'll see you next time. Bye.
Someplace I call